What's up guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working on putting in a new evaporator into this 2002 Suburban. This particular truck has had no air conditioning for 2 years as we have been chasing down what the problem could be. It started off needing a compressor for sure because it had blown out the protection on the back of the Suburban, the overpressure protection. And so we put a new compressor in it and that didn't fix it. Then we put new hoses in it, that didn't fix it. New expansion valve, new condenser. It's had a bunch of stuff. A couple of weeks ago we got into the back here and we checked our rear AC condenser because it was a lot easier to get to. And well, you guys can't see me anymore. And it worked, it looks fine. I don't see any leaks on that. There's quite a bit of dye in this system and there's no dye right there. So I didn't think that's the problem. So we are down to the evaporator. Now, there is an evaporator hack out there. If you don't particularly care about your truck, there is a way of cutting through the heater box and installing a new evaporator core in like 2.5 hours instead of the 15 or 20 or whatever it is that this takes. But I love this truck. It has been in our family since it was new, and we definitely do not want to do anything of a hack to it. So we're gonna do the full procedure. We're gonna take out the dash, we're gonna take out the heater box, and we're gonna replace the heater core properly. So that's what this video is about. Now, in doing my research, it appears that the steering wheel is supposed to come out and some other stuff. I believe that we can do it without doing that. So we are going to try to do that first, do it that way without taking those out. If we can't, we'll let you know. And obviously, as we always say when we're doing the how-tos, watch the video all the way through because sometimes we'll say something at the beginning and then we'll find out that that doesn't work or we'll find a better way. So don't use this as one of those videos where you know, I say take off these bolts, you take off those bolts. At least watch it all the way through first before you do that. Then you can go back and use it as a step-by-step. So I'm Joel, this is Motors of Mischief, and this is our 2002 Chevy Suburban 2500 that we're putting a new evaporator in. Let's get to work. Okay, first thing we have to do is we do have to mess with the passenger side airbag. I'm hoping we're not going to have to pull the driver's side airbag. We will see. Either way, we're going to disconnect the battery so that we don't mess up the airbags, blow ourselves up, and also we don't mess with the anti-theft. As long as it's disconnected when we do stuff, it won't think it's being stolen. So we're going to pull those first. All right, guys, Joel from the future. I'm interrupting to tell you a couple things. First of all, we did obviously do this. You can tell from the thumbnail. So don't pay any attention to me when I'm saying things like if this works out or what have you. Definitely worked. Second thing is you do not have to mess with the driver's side airbag. We're not going to touch that. We're not going to do anything with steering column, none of that stuff. You will be messing with the passenger side airbag in the sense that we're going to have to lift the dash off of it. You don't want that sucker going off in your face while you're doing it. So do what I said about the airbag, get that, or about the battery, get that disconnected. I'm going to send you back to the regular video now. I will be interrupting a couple more times just to clarify some stuff, make this a better video for you guys. All right, let's get back to it. First thing we got to do is take this bezel out from outside. The instrument cluster here, it just snaps right out. There's no screws or anything holding it in place. Next step is to take out the radio and the heater controls. We've got a 7mm right there and right there, up here and up here for the radio. So go ahead and pull those out. Okay, to get the radio out, we're just going to push down on these little clips on either side. They're right there. And then some vehicles have the clips on this as well. Mine had, oh, it's got clips and screws. So it looks like there's clips at the top and screws at in the middle there. So those all need to come out. Okay, that's those out, and my truck has quite a bit more wiring than yours does probably. I put some aftermarket radio stuff in this truck at one point. We've since pulled it out, but the wiring's still inside, so I'll probably actually go ahead and remove that while we're doing this since we don't need it anymore. But yours should look more a little like along the lines of the factory stuff. So unplug your AC and radio. And then the next thing you gotta do is pull these covers from either side. There's one on this side and there's another one on the other side. We'll pull those. Okay, next we gotta take out this trim piece right here. There are a couple of 7mm down here and then some snaps. Okay, so you can see those clips. They go in like this. This part is supposed to be on the end just like that, but sometimes these stay behind right here like mine did. If that happens, just pull this out, stick it back on here. It didn't hurt anything, but they need to be on this side when you put them back together. All right, next thing that has to come out is the metal steering column guard. That's this guy right there. 2 10mm right there, and 2 10mm right there. All right, next out is the A-pillar trims. So we got one on each side. You take both of those out so that the dashboard can go up later. And they just snap in. So I like to use one of these. We'll see how effective it is. And they just pop out. Okay, same kind of thing as before. This little clip goes on here. Oops, like that. And this stayed behind. So just pop it out and reinstall it because it needs to be on the trim piece, not on the truck. Okay, next thing that has to come out is the actual upper dash. So it's going to be these 7mm that are all exposed now that we've pulled out the bezel, and there's also screws, Phillips screws on the side here. Okay, next is these bezels, these air vents. There's one on each side of the airbag. So they just pop out. And then there's some extension tubes behind them. We'll just pull those out as well. Okay, next thing that had to come off was the grab handle. It's got these long metal doohickeys on it. They slide in there, and then I don't know if you can see, but there is a little white, yeah, right there, a little white button right there. You push in on that button. There's a tensioner that pushes against the metal on here, and when you push on that, it releases it, and this slides right out. Okay, on this truck, we've got a couple of Phillips down here that were hidden by those air vents. Let's go ahead and pull those out. Okay, that should be everything needed to pull the top of this dash out. We do have these 2 light sensors up there that need to be unplugged. I can't reach them with the dash the way it is, so I'm going to try pulling the dash out a little ways, see if we can get our hands on those, but don't want to try to walk away with those still connected. So some trucks only have 1, this one has 2, so check yours, and however many you've got, you need to unplug them both. So we're going to go ahead and try to pull this out, and if we run into any difficulty, then turn the camera back on and show you guys what we found. Okay, and there's the upper dash out. It was actually a lot easier than I expected it to be. So you saw me yank real hard on the clips over the airbag. That's these guys right here. And then it got hung up on this, coming out the back on this. So this tried to hook around this vent right here, which is, I'm sure, what holds it down. So I just had to get that unhooked to be able to get it out. And then these light sensors, they just turn inside there. There's no need to unplug anything. You just twist them and they come right out. All right, on to the next step. Okay, next step is the glove box. So there are a few bolts holding that in and then some tabs. So the entire assembly apparently comes out. So go ahead and get those out of there. There are 2 rivets that go through that metal and into the plastic right here. Go into this assembly right there. I remember from watching other videos, particularly the hack video, that those need to be drilled out to be able to get that off of there. But I don't want to do that. Try not to destroy anything on a vehicle that the factory put in unless it's like really obvious that it was a stupid move. So I would rather take this entire thing off and leave the glove box riveted to it. And in order to get that off, it looks like this needs to come off because I believe I need to get to some bolts that are behind here. So, but let's see if we can get just this part out first and save ourselves some trouble. So that's next steps. All right, little update as I'm figuring things out. The cover that was right here just pops right out once the 2 screws that are here and here are removed. That thing comes completely out. The cassette deck, if you've got that, it's just got these same little push guys, just like the radio did. So that slides out right there. And then I can see that we've got some bolts up here that are coming in from underneath, and it looks like a couple down on top of a metal frame that's down there. We've also got these right here and right here that are holding this part of the center console to this part. So I'm going to go ahead and undo these, see if we can work this out of here. Like I said, if not, I was expecting to take out the center console, so we'll do that next, but that's how we've gotten so far. Okay, so it appears that the center console does need to come out. I figured that was the case. I believe the instructions that the research that I've done is for Silverados with a bench, so they don't have a center console right there. And obviously you don't have to remove it if you don't have it, but we did have it. Joel from the future again. Let me show you. Also, pay no attention to that. We have a big series on this thing coming up where we're going to be doing a tremendous amount of work on this, and that's getting fixed, but it has to survive for a few more months like it is. So anyway, on this center console, you do not have to take all the stuff apart that I am going to possibly be referencing as we're talking about this thing. You don't have to take out any of the screws. To get this out, all you have to do is take out the 4 screws that are inside here. There's 2 down here, 2 at the back, and then underneath this right there, there's these screws right there. That's all you got to do. And then once you've undone those, that whole console will lift right out. It is clipped in on either side next to the seats. We'll put a video right here of what that looks like so you can see it. You just yank on it and it'll come right out. So that's all you got to do to that. Don't take all those little screws out. Don't take the back part off. None of that's necessary. Whole thing will just come right out if you undo those 4 bolts and then the 2 that come in from the front there, and that's it. All right, back to the regular video. Okay, so this actually wasn't that hard once I figured it out. It's actually just held in by these right here, and these are the same standard bolts that we've been using for everything. So far, every single one of the bolts like this in this entire setup has been the exact same size except for the 2 that hold in the radio. They've been shorter. Everything else is exactly the same size. So more of those, and they were just right here and right here. I could reach this with a wrench. I could reach this one with a ratchet really easy, but I just used a wrench on it since I had it out. And once those were done, this had that wire Christmas tree right there hooked into it. I just had to pop that out, and then this whole thing came out, and now that gives us access to all the bolts that we need right there to be able to pull this lower section of dash. So I'm gonna put this in the back of the truck out of our way, and then we'll pull that lower section of dash. All right, so this was a little scary because these are really in there, but we've got those clips. This one left the thing behind just like it's been doing all day. I think I was showing you guys, so I'll pull that out and stick it back on here. But we got one right here, one right here, one right here, one right here, one right there, one right there, and another one right there just for fun. So I just hooked everything. I just hooked my screwdriver behind there, popped them out, and they came right out. It didn't hurt anything. It just sounds horrible. Sounds like everything's breaking and snapping and coming apart, but it's not. It's just these guys releasing, and they come right out. So this entire assembly dropped away. I'm sure that had to come out. There's no possible way it could have stayed behind there. So, and I was right. These are riveted onto here. I don't have any idea why you would do that, but we hung on to it, so it's all good. So put this in the back of the truck, and now we'll work on next steps. Okay, according to the interwebs, this entire dash assembly will come out and lift up enough that we can slide this heater core out from underneath it once it's all unbolted. I find that really hard to believe. So I hope they're right. That would be really cool. They say that you don't have to unbolt the stuff on the driver's side, just the passenger side, and that there's enough flex to lift it up and get this out. I just don't see that happening, but I could certainly be wrong. We will find out. I do think, though, that what we might be able to do is disconnect everything on the driver's side and then actually pivot this thing up and over enough without pulling the steering wheel or the instrument cluster on that side to be able to maneuver the heater core out from, or the heater box out from underneath it. So hopefully that's the case. We will find out. Next step, we got to take these 4 10mm bolts right here, take all those off. Okay, next we've got to pull this kick panel right here, and apparently there is a monster electrical cable or connector underneath there. We got to unplug that, and then 4 electrical connectors that are above the monster cable. So we'll pull all of those out. Okay, I have to pull this out. You can get it out without pulling this side trim, and mine broke, so that's unfortunate. And both of the clips stayed behind this time, so we'll pull those out at some future point. And I guess I actually need another one of these to be able to fix it, but I think I'll just stuff it back in there and it'll be fine. Okay, I think these probably could have stayed behind. They seem like they're going with the dash, and that makes 1, 2, 3, 4 that we did need to disconnect. So also these connectors right here are pretty simple. They've got instructions on them. You just squeeze right here, and then this thing will unlock, and you just pull it back, and then the whole thing disconnects. It's actually really easy. Okay, now we're moving to the engine compartment. So this truck has rear air conditioning, as I've mentioned, and that makes things a lot more complicated. So it doesn't, let's see, we need to disconnect both of these. These are the AC lines that go into our evaporator. We also need to disconnect these heater core lines. You can see these are like little T's. Those go to the back of the truck. But if you look way around on the side there, it's actually got those little crimp connectors, not crimp connectors like you. They got little, well, it looks like these. So you push in on that right there and on the other side, and then that will disconnect. It has those connected to the heater core. So hopefully we can get those out without causing a whole bunch of trouble. And then there's 7 nuts and bolts. We start all the way over here. If you look way down under there where I'm pointing, there's a bolt and then a nut and then a bolt, and then they keep doing that until you get all the way over to this one. 7 of them all together, and those all have to get disconnected in order for the heater box, in order for the air box to come out. So we're going to disconnect all that from underneath here. Hopefully it will go smoothly. Wish me luck. Obviously, if your AC system still has Freon in it, you need to recover and recycle that Freon, recover and store for use later. But of course, this one's empty and has been for 2 years, so I don't need to do that. But if you do, before you break those lines, now's the time to do it if you haven't already done it. Okay, yep, thank you. Okay, you have to pull the receiver dryer because there are 2 of those bolts that we have to get to right behind it. So I went ahead and pulled this as well just to get it out of the way. Okay, according to the interwebs, there are 7 nuts and bolts that hold this thing in. I'm counting 8 on mine. So either mine has 8, which is entirely possible, or that isn't actually one, or I don't know if you can see it way back there behind the transmission dipstick tube. You can see another one. So I don't know if mine has 8 or if one of those isn't a heater box nut or bolt. So since that one is way easier to get to than the one behind the engine, I'm going to go ahead and pull that and see if it's actually a connector. If it's not, then I guess the other one definitely is. If it is, I guess it still could be the other one. So I guess we're going to have to take them apart both. So yeah, I guess we'll know until we pull the heater core out whether those actually were or not, which is unfortunate. So you guys will know, I won't know. Man, I don't want to do the one behind the engine there, but I guess that's what we're doing next. So first we'll pull the one that was behind the, or that's holding the bracket in for the receiver dryer, and then we'll get to the one behind the motor. Okay, so bad news, guys. The one holding the receiver dryer in place is just the one holding the receiver dryer in place. Got nothing to do with the the heater box, unfortunately. So you can see that's just a regular stud that's in the firewall right there. It's not going all the way through. Doesn't look like any of the rest of them. So that means that the one that we do need to get to is behind that transmission dipstick, behind the engine. And I don't know if the 8.1 is bigger than, I mean, I know it's bigger, but I don't know if it's like dimension-wise, if it's that much bigger than the 6.0 that was the other option for this truck. This doesn't look fun, so we'll dive into it. Hopefully this is easier. Okay, got that one from behind the engine. I ended up having to use this contraption here, a short 10, a wobbler, and then this extension. It was not easy. It was not easy. So it is definitely a heater housing bolt though, because I can see that it matches up the same as the other ones that we pulled out. So that one did need to come out. That's the 7. So now that those are all undone, the last thing I have to do is the coolant lines. Okay, I have been fighting with these heater core quick disconnects for at least an hour, possibly 2 hours. Finally got one of them off, and I've watched quite a few videos on how to take these off, and most people, or at least the videos I was watching, they weren't actually showing what the issue is here. So a couple of things. This has come apart, and it actually makes it extremely easy to see what's going on. So this is your quick disconnect, and it's got these. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to squeeze these arms and then pull these little ears, and then pull the pipe off. Now, what they don't tell you, or what I didn't hear anybody say, is that it makes it a whole lot easier if you push this as hard as you can in while you're squeezing these, because basically what you're trying to do is these pipes have got a little this is an AC line, so it's not the same thing. So this is not the right pipe, but it is flared the same on the end. So it's got this little flare around the edge, and that fits in right here inside that part. Okay, so when you're disconnecting this thing, it looks like what you're trying to do is squeeze these ears to get this to go in, right? So that'll disconnect and you can pull this out. But notice it doesn't do that. It actually, what you're doing is, because that flare is sitting right inside here, you're actually trying to open this enough that it disconnects from the flare. So this is supposed to be inside here, and the way that disconnects is it opens on either side of the flare. That's why you can use these quick disconnect tools to get them to disconnect. If you hook this, let's go down here. If you hook this on this line right there, you can see there's that little flare I was talking about, and this hooks on here, slides up, and it pushes the ears on this part open so that'll pop right out. So that's how you get those out of there. I got this one out. I think we're going to be replacing these because they got little O-rings in them and they do leak, and this is 20 years old, so I won't put it back together with these. We'll just loop the coolant for right now, and we'll get some new ones of these. But when you're putting this back together, when you're trying to get those apart, push and squeeze, and then if you can't do the push and squeeze, grab yourself the tool. The little lines going to your rear heater core are the red ones, and the bigger lines going to your main heater core is the green one, which is this guy right here. All right, good luck. All right, so those are all disconnected now. These connectors were horrible. I finally turned off the time lapse because it was just, that was like 2 hours of me fighting with these things. But again, if you just push on them and squeeze those little things and pull, they come right out. Once you understand how they work, it's actually not that difficult. And this is I've owned this truck since it was new. These have never been apart before. So this is the original 20-year-old plastic. It's actually still in pretty good shape. I am going to get new ones to put this back together because I don't want these things to leak. But these did a good job for 20 years, so, or coming apart, you know, once we figured it out. So now that we have all those bolts disconnected for the air box, or for the heater box, and we've got the cooling lines all disconnected, it's time to go back inside the truck, and we've got to, if I remember correctly, the next step is to start taking apart these 15 millimeters. So let me double check what the next step is. Nope, that's second to the next step. First step, we will do these next. But before we do that, there is a vertical support right down there. You can kind of see it coming up. We need to disconnect that. It's by the gas pedal. We're going to disconnect that, and then we'll get these 15s. There's 3 15 millimeter bolts on this side. And according to the interwebs, just disconnecting that will give us enough flex to lift this up and pull the heater box out from underneath it. I don't think that's going to work. We're going to try it. But if it doesn't, then we will disconnect the 15 millimeter bolts on the other side, get the dashboard completely just sitting here, and then hopefully that'll give us enough room that we can pull that box out from underneath it. So we're going to disconnect that now. There's a stud sticking out right there, and then this bar that's coming down, this slides over the end of the stud, and then it just clips at the top. So if you pull it out and then pull it out, look at this. Okay, as I suspected, there's no possible way this thing's going to come out with all that stuff still hooked up. So I don't know if perhaps the person who did the write-up that I'm using, you know, had a different type of truck. I mean, it's for us. It's for a it's, you know, same year and stuff. But maybe there's something different with the Suburbans, or maybe because this is 2500. I don't know. But on this, we at least this dash is rock solid in here. That's not going anywhere. And you can see the heater core comes all the way over to here. So we're gonna have to get the majority of this dash, if not the entirety of this dash, out of here for this to be able to work. However, I'm still willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I was looking around and I noticed that we've got See right up in there, we've got two, looks like 13s. We've got two, you can see them right back in there. Looks like a couple of 10s. And then we've got the 15 on this side, and there's probably another one right up behind here. So if we pull all of that stuff and possibly the instrument cluster as well, then we'll be able to move this up and kind of this direction enough to get the heater core out of there without pulling the steering wheel and the entire dash. I still don't know if that's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. Let's see. Okay, it's the next morning. It got late and dark, and I decided that we'd go ahead and hold this to the next day. So we are right where you just were a second ago. We are going to pull those bolts that I showed you on the other side here. Had to hook a couple things back up to be able to pull this out last night since I'm a bit in the garage. So I'll disconnect the battery, disconnect that electrical, and then we'll dive into the bolts. Hopefully that's what's coming off. All right, guys, we made some good progress, discovered a few things. So in most of the videos that I'm watching, they're showing you disassemble the top part, this part of the dash. And to do that, then you've got to take out all of those metal bars right there, and you've got to disconnect the lower part from the crash bar and everything. But my understanding is that the crash bar can so the dash is bolted to the crash bar, and the crash bar is bolted to the truck. So theoretically, if we disconnect the crash bar from the truck, then it should be able to go with the dashboard. And I believe that that's what we've got. We have this very loose now. That entire thing appears to be out of there. What we needed to do to get it is there's two 10mm bolts or nuts right on the side there. We pulled those out. There's two more right over here, pulled those out. This the crash bar is connected behind this with the 15mm, these guys, but this is actually also held because this comes apart as two pieces. So normally Chevy has you take this off, and then the crash bar is still bolted underneath it. So we did need to take both of those off. There's two 7mm behind here. This structure right here that holds the steering column in place stays. The dash is not connected to that. The crash bar connects to it right underneath here with two 13mm that are up here. We got to pull those out. Those are the ones I mentioned. And then this side of it, there's two 10mm on this side that connect. I'm not 100% sure those need to come out, but I believe they do. So with those all out, and I did take the instrument cluster out obviously to get to those bolts. I mostly took it out because I wanted to see if there's anything behind here, and also because I wanted to protect it since we're now going to try to lift this up and pivot it over here. I didn't want the instrument cluster getting messed up on this. Those of you who are familiar with the channel know that we spent weeks and weeks working on the instrument cluster on that, and I've had my fill of damaged instrument clusters, so we're done with that for a while. But I believe it's ready to pivot out of here, because theoretically now what we can do is we'll lift the dash here up and off of the heater box, pivot it this direction, and then we'll be able to slide the heater box out from underneath it, which has been our goal this entire time. So it appears that now with the stuff disconnected on this side, that we will be able to do that. So, oh, there was two other things. See that wire right up there? We did have to disconnect that because that wire stays behind. And then I disconnected the antenna because there's a connection right there, and it seems to me that the antenna probably it needs to stay behind since it's bolted to the fender. So we got those two as well. So that's it. We're going to try lifting this thing off now. Okay, so that did work. There wasn't actually anything else holding it on, just was kind of hung up on a lot of stuff. So there were two other things I disconnected. This right here was being stretched, so I disconnected that, and then this was plugged in right here, and it was being stretched. I think these are the rear AC controls. So now we have the heater box pretty much exposed. I don't know if that's enough room to slide this thing out, and we can't come any farther with the with this cluster because the steering column over there is holding things up. So I know it's not that big of a deal to get the steering column out, so if we have to, we'll do that, but I've been told that this will work and that we can slide that out from underneath there, so we're going to give that a shot. That came out like butter. That worked so good. Look at that. That was perfect. It just pulled off and slid right out. I didn't even have to fight it. There was the perfect amount of room, like it was designed for it. I'm sure it wasn't, but that worked fantastic. So there was two things that I did find when I went to pull the heater box. There's a wire that sits on top of it that was just held in with a push pin, Christmas tree right there, and then there was a ground wire that went to this. You'll see them when you get to your heater box. They're super obvious. Those both need to be disconnected. So there's the heater box laying on the ground, and now we've got like 9 million 7mm screws or clips or something like that, and we'll open this thing up, and hopefully that's our problem, and that the evaporator is what's leaking. It's the only thing on the front AC system that we haven't replaced, so hopefully that's it. These things are known to leak. Fingers crossed. All right, we're going to open this up and show you how that goes. We'll put you on time lapse. It's just all these screws. You've got to get the case halves apart, and I think most of those are from the bottom, but I'll show you once we get that apart. All right, let's get this apart. Okay, guys, got the evaporator box apart. It is just a bunch of screws coming up from the bottom. That's how many there are. If you want to pause the video there, count those up, you can see how many. There is one hidden one that comes in right here, so you got to reach up and underneath next to the fan there, so don't miss that one. All the rest of them are super obvious. I did take this box off the top and unplugged the wire there, and then it just lifted up and unhooked. I don't know that that was necessary, or that it was necessary to take the heater core out, but both of those were super easy and seemed like it would make it simpler. So unfortunately for us, this evaporator is not leaking, and it is, I've never seen such a beautiful evaporator out of a 20-year-old vehicle. So nice job, Chevy. This thing is still turning away just beautifully. We have a brand new GM one. We will go ahead and put that in, even though it doesn't need it. And then once we get this back together, we'll go back to trying to figure out why we have no air conditioning on this thing. It will not hold vacuum. So there's a leak in the system someplace. Two shops have not been able to track it down. And we've put dye in it. It's gotten, like I said, every single component from the firewall forward has been replaced. The rear AC evaporator looks as good as this one does, so you can see that one without taking it out if you disassemble it like I showed you at the beginning of the video. So I'm a little stumped on what it could be, but that doesn't affect this video for you guys. So now what we're going to do is go back together. Everything is just reverse. If I come across anything that's difficult, I will film it, but otherwise I'm not going to bother to film the B-roll stuff for you guys. It's exactly the same as what you just watched it going in reverse. You don't need to sit there and watch that. So if I find something interesting, I will film it and show you, but otherwise we'll put this back together. We'll slide this case back in. We'll mount it up to the firewall. We'll reconnect everything, and we'll put the dash back in place, and I will, I think I'm going to go ahead and get the heater box put back in, the air box put back in, get the evaporator hooked up, get the AC system closed, and get the vacuum on it so that it can start sucking stuff down and see if by some miracle taking everything apart and putting it back together will fix the leak. I don't expect it to. I think it's possibly in the lines going to the rear air C system. So we will continue to track things down on that. But anyway, we'll get this out together, and I will see you guys in just a few seconds if I found anything when putting this back together. All right, so I did see one thing that I want to show you guys, something I actually forgot about. There is a drain on the bottom of the evaporator, and it is right. Now we're having the same issues with the flashlight there. I think you can see that. So you can see it's fallen off right there. It's just that little L. And you definitely want to put that back on, or pull it off before it falls off like I did on that one, put it back on. Also, when testing the evaporator, we did check there, and we did, there was no leak or anything like that, but since we couldn't find one anywhere else, we went ahead and went for it. So that is a great place if you think your evaporator is leaking, is to test right there, because you should get dye and or oil, and then dye if you've got dye in the system. But you should be able to, if you stick the sniffer right there, you should be able to see it. Unfortunately, it's underneath the dryer, the receiver dryer. So it's real difficult to get to or to test while the system's connected. But obviously you can see once the dryer's pulled out, it's real obvious. So anyway, also I wanted to show you guys what this looks like with the system opened up, or with the, it's always nice to get to see what this stuff looks like. So there's the heater box back in, and here is the dashboard with all of its pieces. So you can see all of this stayed, everything stayed. We really didn't have to take much apart at all. This is actually a really fast job, now that I know how stuff comes apart. I know the hack to cut the hole in the side of your heater box takes like 2.5 hours. I think this honestly could be done if now that I've done it, I think I could do it in like 4. So not having to completely disassemble the steering wheel, not having to take out all those parts of the dash and everything like that, that makes it a whole lot faster. So, and then you don't have to cut the hole in your dash. So I'm going to get back to buttoning this up, and I will grab you guys if there's anything else interesting to look at. Okay guys, something else I want to tell you real quick. As you're putting this back in, this whole thing does just lift right back into where it's supposed to be. You'll need to guide the bolts down here back on, the 213s over there, the little pins, studs I mean, that come through right there, and then the ones that come through over there, those don't really want to line up, and they actually come from down low and kind of hook into place. But you can see that all goes back in. Little trick, put your 15mm bolts and your 13mm bolts here into your crash bar before you tighten up the top here. That way you get your crash bar nice and tight back into the truck, and then you can just pull the dash back down with those 10mm up there at the top. That way you're not putting those down and then trying to twist the whole dashboard as the crash bar goes into place. So crash bar first, then the rest of those, and then or the 10s up there, and then the 10s down here, and then the 10s on either side, there to hold all the dashboard into place. Piece of cake. Okay, 2 things I discovered that I want to show you. One, this just slides in, of course, but it can go in upside down. It is not either way. It has to go in right side up. So take a look at your sides angles. The larger curve goes on the top, and then it'll slide in. If you get it backwards, you can just pull it back out, but you'll know right away that you did, just like I did. The other thing is this support bar down here. When you're putting your crash bar back in, this goes between the mount for where the crash bar mounts and the crash bar itself. So make sure that you slide this into place, and then the bolts, the 2 13mm that are up in there, they go through this plate, through the crash bar, through this brace, and then into the end there. So 2 more things. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to show you. All right guys, and we're back to real time. That is it. We have wrapped up the truck. It's actually quite a few weeks later. We were down to the wire on a family trip that we were trying to take with this thing. Really wanted the air conditioning to work. We were able to repair it. For those of you who were concerned about the fact that the evaporator didn't fix it, thank you for your concern. We did figure it out. It was the hoses going to the back. There was a very tiny pin leak, and it was actually the hose was flopping over, so when it would vacuum, it would suck it down and hold it and give us mostly good vacuum. But then when we pressurized it, it would slowly leak fluid out. Anyway, we ended up bypassing those hoses entirely, and we'll have another video coming out on how to disable the rear air on your truck if you don't want to spend the $400 for the to replace that. But that's a whole different video. This one, we're back, truck works, everything worked fantastic. It was a great trip. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it was really useful to you. Like and comment if you've got things to add down below. Put them in the comment, and we'll make sure that they're part of the description for anybody who is doing this. So we work together as a community. Check out our store. We've got some pretty cool merch. Look around if there's some other videos that you guys like. There's all kinds of stuff on this truck. We've got some Jeeps. We've got a Raptor. All kinds of cool stuff. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. Peace. I'm Joel. This is Motors and Mischief. This is our 2002 Chevy Suburban. Forgot what it was. It's a Chevy Suburban.